Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be talking specifically for Gladiator Circuit week 1 and 2 meta. Now normally I actually don't really make separate video for weeks 1 and 2 GC meta because typically they are quite similar, just slightly harder. Like a perfect example was last month where we had Genesis Conflictor Phantom Pain as the victory track meta. And then, in the Gladiator Circuit, effectively opponents eventually got unblockable passive for like 6 seconds. Didn't happen that much, it did change some matchups, made them harder, but ultimately, exactly the same champions that work here, did work here as well. It's just the fights were a little bit harder. And in the next season meta, it's effectively going to be the same thing, where we have Steady as She Goes, Power Snack, and then we have Placebo. Well, this does change the game a little bit more as well, but in this season, Electric Defense completely changes which champions are going to be good and what can be useful. As well as the fact that Arc Overload gets twice as active will mean that you probably can't really outdamage the Arc Overload just with pure raw power as easily. Because in Victory Track, Arc Overload is every 20 seconds, where they gain 25% armor up and regeneration, 25% of max health for 6 seconds. In the Gladiator Circuit, it's every 10 seconds. That's going to be massive amounts of regeneration. I think this is going to be the most potent Arc Overload that we have seen in ages. But the real banger is here. So each hit on the defender while armor up is active, power burns the attacker for 10% of a bar. Damage scales with number of armor ups and defender's base attack. So number one, Arc Overload will give armor ups to every champion. So unless you are power burn immune or can get rid of those buffs immediately, the fights are going to be extremely difficult to begin with. And that does not even involve champions who have armor ups themselves. As a bit of a cherry on top as well is we didn't have a chance to actually test this at all. Because of the way the off-season is set, we could play the Victory Track meta and we could play the weeks 3 and 4 meta. So this meta is completely untested. And everything I'm going to tell you is just going to be basically of my own experience and kind of projections. So let's start with the power burn immune characters. And out of these, definitely need to pay highlighted attention to Venom. And Cosmic Glass in general is going to be very powerful because they are the ones that are most likely immune to power burn. So we do have Venom, that's going to be great because, well, he's immune to power burn. Against techs, mainly, which are going to be the armor up champions. But he also can get rid of the armor up buffs. He does have armor break on his heavy attack, so he's going to do great. Thanos, completely being immune to power burn. Fantastic choice, as well as access to debuffs to mitigate the regeneration. Great. Terrax could actually be kind of a bit of an MVP, I think, because he's obviously, you know, a viable defender and then offensively capable too. We might see finally the man for Phoenix. Now, I personally am a bit afraid of this because Phoenix is lagging my phone. But she might be popping off weeks 1 and 2 meta as well. Whoops, I hate when it does this, but okay. Let's get to the power burn immunity. Where's the power burn? And besides Phoenix, you know, some madman's probably going to be running either one of the King Roots, probably the a Deathless King Root. Hulkling, but again, Hulkling I'm a bit skeptical with 6-star and him not being able to deal with Arc Overload. That might be a bit too much for him, so I'm not like expecting him to do that great of thing. But Gladiator, I think, is actually going to be a legitimate option now, as well as Galen, because Galen obviously can get supercharged if he's awakened in this meta. So out of those champions, we definitely, you know, we'll see a lot of these that are immune to power burn and can deal with regeneration, at least mitigated, like, you know, Deathless Thanos with his debuffs. Right. Then, obviously, tech class is going to be crazy. We're going to have Fam causing havoc. We're going to see random ass defenders, like Captain America Sam Wilson, you know. He could be an issue at defense. And I'm not making this up, I promise you. Civil Warrior, we're legitimately likely going to get to see Civil Warrior, because on top of everything else, Civil Warrior is immune to nullify and stagger effect, so that still further limits his counters. So Steel Warrior could potentially be a problem. Right, moving on, Guardian, maybe a bit less, you know, so a Steel Warrior, but I'm 100% convinced we're going to see him running around, and, you know, when he's going to get tossed on defense, it could be a problem. Now, Howard the Duck is going to be the MVP of this meta. He was before, he will be again. Because number one, well, he starts the fight with armor ups. And that is the most evil thing in this meta. When you start the fight with armor ups, it means opponent gets power drained from the very first hit, and you can struggle reaching your level 2, your special attacks, and you can take damage immediately. And that is how most champions actually have, you know, buff control or armor breaks and stuff like that. And he has armor breaks on his heavy attack, which is perfect. Also, heal block and lots of debuffs to mitigate regeneration in every which way. And there we go. So, Howard the Duck is going... I'm expecting to rank up Howard the Duck. I typically do not rank up champions for Victory Track 1 and 2 weak metas, but I do think I will Howard the Duck. Alright, moving on, Hulkbuster I think is going to be a fairly legitimate champion. And then, you know, obviously Red Skull starts with a bunch of armor ups, and unless you have like a very dedicated, very specific count. I don't actually know too many champions that will do great against him. Like, we're obviously going to have Galen and the champs that are immune to Power Burn, but yeah, he's going to catch people off guard for sure. Also, we have Iron Man, then Ironheart, and a whole bunch of different tech champions. So we're going to have random Colossus running around, because again, he's immune to armor break from non-tech champions, which is a fairly big deal. So that's how it was last time around we saw this meta. This time around with that region, and it is going to be quite a wild one. Then offensively speaking, which champions I do think will work well on attack? Number one, I do think Crossbones could potentially be quite capable, because ability accuracy reduction does bypass the power burn. So I do fully expect to see Crossbones. Again, Howard the Duck, as I mentioned before, offensively. I do think Sentinel might be a very, very solid option as well, because of his level 1 and armor breaks lasting forever, and you can kind of time it, but we'll see how realistic it is. But, you know, heal block, tons of armor breaks, and tons of debuffs could be decent. Titania, one of the few science champions I think that could function somewhat fine due to her stagger on her heavy attack. Still, obviously, if opponent starts with an armor buff, there's not much she can do. Nico, I think, is going to be amazing. I think Nico is going to do crazy good in this match, as well as Caroline Dean, by the way. But Nico's buff immunity will work magic here, because you counter the regen, you counter the armor ups, you counter the power burn. Life's good for Nico. And then Mystics in general will be obviously quite good too, because, you know, Mojo, for instance, you know, you just make the regen and armor buffs expire instantly, so that could be quite useful. Juggy always functioned quite well, because, you know, with his heavy attack he can stagger the armor ups, and then if some get through, there is also a nullify available to him. So he was quite decent. Diablo could potentially be another rank up suggestion, because not only he's the Dark Phoenix counter and the decent Serpent counter, he's going to be dealing with this meta extremely well, in my opinion. Shatro could be decent. The nullification abilities are fairly weak, but at the very least, Atrophy going to function well. We have Tigra, that again, as long as opponent's not starting with many armor ups, she's going to do fine. Symbiote Supreme should function decently well too. And then, as I mentioned before, we do have Phoenix, who's power burn immune, has access to armor break, has access to a ton of debuffs. I do suspect she's going to be putting in work. Dark Phoenix should be putting in quite a bit of work as well, with her Pulverize on the heavy attacks. And also, I do believe she had something with a power burn immunity. And it's power drain immunity, but still, Pulverize should be putting in work there as well. As I mentioned, Galen, Medusa, obviously Null, and Cosmic Glass in general is going to be popping. The classes that suffer the most are mutants, I think, because number one, there will be a lot of tech champions with armor ups running around, so mutant defenders will have harder time excelling. And number two, they can't really do anything to armor up buffs. So I doubt we'll see many mutants in the upcoming meta. I doubt we'll see too many science champions, maybe due to the influx of mystics, but I'm kind of doubtful on that. The real three hero classes are going to be Tech, Mystic, and Cosmic. that is who is going to rule the meta of weeks 1 and 2. Because again, obviously Tech will primarily be the defenders with their armor buffs, and some of them do have access to the armor breaks. Then we're gonna have Mystics who can deal with buffs in general, and they kind of get supercharged by Arc Overload. And then we're gonna have Cosmics who have access to armor breaks, power burn immunity. And so I remember how this meta used to look like, but I think this version of this meta is going to be significantly more brutal. Because again, as always, you're going to have to split your attention into several different directions. And right now, with Kabam having released a slew of 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5 defenders recently, there are a lot of champions that you cannot kill without a dedicated counter. Champions like Yelena and Deadpool X, Yelena, for instance, needs Onslaught, Deadpool X for something of the sort. But they do not answer the dangers of the nodes for the most part in this meta. And that is going to make those fights significantly more difficult, leaving us with little or close to no counters. Especially considering we're going to have to having the random choices of these armor up and armor break champions. And then, obviously, us needing to answer the regular meta threats. The Serpent, the Yelenas, the Zola, the whatever we fight. We're going to legitimately be roadblocked by a random Civil Warrior on defense, or Captain America Sam Wilson, and we'll need answers for those too. The kicker is, many of those champions will be completely useless on attack. So, I don't know, I predict extremely draft-dependent meta. I really, really do. Because in this meta, unless you can deal with that armor up, for instance, and opponents have the armor ups, there's just nothing you can do. You can just die. Take damage and die. And it's going to be a bit wild, I think. Let me know what you guys think, but I am, for one, very happy that that's not the final meta. The final meta has a lot of hurdles in its own right, for sure. But I think this one is going to be quite a wild one. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next